Poo in my bum. The activation lock prevents anyone on the phone who is not the owner from using the phone. Theoretically, you could use the phone. Theoretically, you could use that password. Unless if you know who the previous owner is. But yeah, otherwise, the phone is, that usually means the phone is a piece of garbage, because if you don't know who the previous owner is, then the phone's basically garbage. It's unusable if you don't know who the previous owner is. Yeah, if you don't know who the previous owner is, the phone is basically garbage. You can't use it. It's unusable if you don't know who the previous owner is. It's unusable if you don't know who the previous owner is. That's actually yahoo.com. Yeah, if you don't know who the previous owner is, the phone is basically garbage. It's a piece of garbage. You can't use it if you don't know who the previous owner is. It would be pretty silly if someone was selling a phone on eBay or something like that, selling refurbished phones that are locked to the previous owner. That would be really silly, because you can't use those if you don't know who the previous owner is. They'll basically be selling pieces of garbage, because you can't use those if they're locked to the previous owner. You can't use them if they're locked to the previous owner. Because if you don't know who the previous owner is, you can't use them if they're locked to the previous owner. You can't use them. You can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. It's basically a piece of garbage at that point, because you can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. You can't use it. Unfortunately, that's the thing, you can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. You can't use it. I say, you probably can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. You can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. You can't use it. That's the thing. You can't use it if it's locked to the previous owner. If it's locked to the owner, you can't use it. It's a piece of garbage. Unless you know who the previous owner is, you can't use it otherwise. Oh no. Yeah, that's the thing, is the activation lock prevents anyone who's not the owner from using the phone. iPods, what's reviewing iPods, they had smoking silicone paint. Jacob Iron, he was looking at his iPods, and looked like a long time ago. But before you got to those iPods, the other iPods apparently, before you open up the box with the other iPods, they looked like they were owned by Coke, that's what the names. But before, one of the iPods was disabled. But not just for a minute or something like that. That iPod was actually disabled for 45 years. I don't even know how that's even possible. How on earth do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How the hell do you even do that? I don't know how the hell you even do that. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. Honestly, the iPod Touch, Apple discontinued the iPod Touch. The last iPod Touch was the 7th generation. Regardless, anyway. How do you disable an iDevice? They're ready to log password. How do you disable it? How do you disable it for 45 years? That makes no sense. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That's ridiculous. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? How do you disable it for 45 years? How on earth is that possible? How is that even possible? How is that? Oh, an iDevice, it doesn't have a maximum time limit for time-based lockouts. It doesn't have a maximum time limit. Instead of long edges, it theoretically trigger time is lasting many years. But it becomes permanently locked off, requires a factory reset to reach the final limit of failed attempts. Yeah, that phone, the iPod that he had was disabled for 45 years. It just makes it. It just makes no sense. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That's what I get. Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? Like, I genuinely don't get it. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years?
It's also from eBay. Hot touch that. Hold on. Am I reading that? Guys, this iPod is disabled for 23,653,390 minutes. Are you? How? 109,383,000. Guys, this iPod is disabled for 23,653,390 minutes. Are you? How is that even possible? No, that can't be possible. Hold on. So that's 394,000 hours, okay? That's 16,000 days. That's 45 years. Alright, so this dude, that can't be possible. How does that happen? You're telling me I can't try to disable this iPod for 45 years? There's no... Guys, I actually have one more box on this iPod. I got more than...
Yeah, I know iPod was disabled, but it must have had a passcode on it. Someone clearly tried it too many times. It was disabled for 45 years. I mean, how is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? It makes no sense. Seriously. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? So I see it's because of 45 years, I don't say that. But yeah, how do you disable an iDevice for... Oh shit. Okay. Anyway, but how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? Well, then again, apparently, when you disable an iDevice, it doesn't have a maximum time limit. It doesn't have a maximum time limit. So, but then there's a final limit, and once you reach that, then it's permanently locked. You have to reset it and then try again. Oh, but yeah, how the hell do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That is ridiculous. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I mean, that is so dumb. How is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? Like, how is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? Honestly, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That is ridiculous. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That just makes no sense. Because then, yeah, when you finally able to connect to iTunes. How on earth, how is that even possible? Like, I mean, that can't be. Like, yeah, still, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That's so dumb. How do you even do that? That's so stupid. How do you disable an iDevice? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? Mm. Mm. I mean, honestly, like, how do you even lock a phone for 45, and not lock an iDevice for 45 years? I mean, how's that even possible? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How the heck is that even possible? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. I mean, honestly, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How the heck is that even possible? Like, how the hell does an iDevice how the hell do you, I mean, how the hell do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. I don't even think that was possible. Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That's so stupid. How do you even... Oh my god, I still can't believe that was even going on there. It was disabled for 45 years. Oh my god, I'm still speechless about that. That it is disabled for 45 years. That is ridiculous. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years?
What's up, guys? Everything Apple. Steps against this is to disable Siri at the lock screen. Anyways, let's go inside and I'll show you how to do them. In here, you want to disable Siri at the lock screen. Anyways, let's go inside and I'll show you how to do them.
Oh. Yeah, how the hell do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I mean, how is that even possible? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense.
So your iPhone is unavailable and you forgot...
Now it's just iPhone unavailable, now it's just iDevice unavailable. Yeah, instead of being it's disabled, it changed it a bit. But yeah, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That is ridiculous. How is that even possible? Seriously. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? What stopper? It was poo poo poo. Really? Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? Actually, no, I don't want to do it. Oh! Honestly, like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How is that even possible? How on earth do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I mean, that is ridiculous. How do you even do that? Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I've never seen anything like that before. How the hell do you even do that? I mean, that's gotta be the most stupidest thing I've ever seen. I mean, honestly, like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I mean, that's ridiculous. You'd never be able to use it at that point. I mean, 45 years? You'd probably be dead by then. It depends, well, then again, it depends how old you are at the time. I mean, seriously, but how do you disable an iDevice? How on earth do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. I didn't even think that's even possible. How does that even, yeah, that's what, like, how do you even do that? That just doesn't make sense. I didn't even think that was even possible. I mean, how do you even do that? It just doesn't make sense. My mind is blown. Insert. I've got 2 recovery keys here. But now, how do I know which is which, though? If I go to... Cause I got this from my OneDrive folder, they're img files. But yeah, that's why I put them in a file like this, a Word file, so because otherwise I have to keep scrolling through all my documents here just to find them. Because they're on all this mess. It's just loads of random files here. Oh! Which explains why my OneDrive storage is almost full as well. That's the other problem. Bean, me mama goes so. Alexander gets hit by a car. Oh my god! Jesus, why did you just yell? Let's see here, so... This one, well, hold on. I want to have a look here. If I go to properties, this one was created May 28th. And this one here was created May 29th, the day after. Right. Mama goes, so the beanie's on fire. Mama goes, so what have you done? Yeah, honestly, she's gonna break my heart. Oh! Honestly, but yeah, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I've never seen that before. That makes no sense. I don't see how you disable an iDevice for 45 years. That's so dumb. How do you even do that? What the name? Stimme sagt nein, das kann nicht mal was sein. At different times, right? I go to, yeah, this is why I had to test because I don't know which code is which. Oh! Mama got so you ding back poo. Yeah, it's the thing. How on earth do you how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I've never seen that before. How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That just doesn't add up at all. That just doesn't make sense. How do you disable an iDevice how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I don't get it. Sorry. It's incorrect. Oh, one more recovery key up there, let's leave here. It worked. That's how it works. You see, this one is my one. Okay, so I need to label these. Because I need to label these, because otherwise I'm not going to know which one's which. Text, okay, how do I put text? I want to insert, header. No, I don't want to put in both of them. No. I'll close header. Oh, now I've just undone everything. No, I didn't mean that. I just wanted to insert a text. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Oh shit. Presentation 1? No, that's not what I wanted. How do I insert? Oh, new slide. Okay. Oh, no. I don't need that many slides. Oh my goodness. I need 2 more. I think we're at 2. Yeah, okay. Bang my bum and throw me in the bin. Mama goes, so what the fuck? Wait, what wasn't it? One of them you put in, the second one you put in worked, but the first one, no, the one you put in, the first one you put in was wrong. Why was that wrong? And the second one wasn't. Why would you have a second one then if that one's wrong? Well, you can't have 2 recovery keys on one account, obviously. Then. I'm going to do image from device. No. Po. That's how it gets called by the popo. Idiot. I had to use that browser because it wouldn't show it on Chrome because I had to test it to see which one was which. OneDrive documents because it's all the images are they're in here. The beginning of the list. Yeah, these 2. Which one's which now? Yeah, this one. Yeah, that's the one that belongs to my account. That recovery key. Then why do you have 2, you dumb? That was also yesterday. Why do you have 2? Well, because you're an idiot? Delete, because I just put the same one in again. I didn't mean that. That's the same one. That's my one. I didn't want to put the other one there. I grabbed the wrong file. This one. The reason I have 2 is because the second one, this recovery key, belongs to my other account. Alex King. Oh, yeah, that belongs to the other account I previously used on my phone because I didn't know I had the recovery key to my other account. Maybe we'll make them a little bigger so you can see them. Now we do info. Open read only. Yes, there we go. I'll put the PowerPoint instead because the Word document didn't work. Because the only reason I did that is so that I wouldn't have to constantly scroll down to the photo just to get to the screenshot. Because there's just so many files there. There's just all sorts of files there. And I keep having to scroll through there all the time otherwise. I have a folder called recovery stuff on my data drive. I've got a folder called recovery stuff. I've got this PowerPoint document because I put recovery keys, but of course I've put a password on it. Because I don't want everyone just being able to access that, so I put a password on it. And let me just test to see if it works. No, because it knows a true password. No, don't say that. Yeah, make sure I put in a password that I can remember. Yep, there we go, it works. Because, I don't want everyone accessing it, but are you sure that's a good idea though? Are you sure that's a good idea? And the thing is, the last time you put a password on a file like that Word file, for the creative world, you couldn't remember, you forgot the password and couldn't get back, you couldn't unlock it anymore. You couldn't access the file anymore. The last time you put a password on a file like that, you couldn't access it anymore. The thing is, the last time we did that, the last time we put a password on a file like that, you forgot what the password was. It was like you wanted to create it for it, and you forgot what the password was. You couldn't access the file again because you couldn't remember the password. That's the thing. The last time we did that, you couldn't remember the password, and you couldn't access the file because you couldn't remember the password. Backed up my recovery stuff here as well. Because you have the PowerPoint, password protected PowerPoint to a Google slide, to Google, back up to Google, you also need the password there as well. Oh yeah, you can't get around that there, you also ask for the password. Oh. I just have the edit mode to remove the password. Oops, I already just did that now. No, I didn't mean that. I said now that will remove the password. And now you can just unlock it. do I get the password back now? Oh no. So I just move this to the bin. And then I go to my drive. Open the same file. I do file upload instead and then upload this file again. Okay, it's back in the recovery stuff folder. And now, there we go, now it needs the password again. Right, because it says opening this document in edit mode will remove the password. To keep the password, you have to open it in preview mode, because otherwise it removes the password. What are those recovery keys even important for? Well, because I have that on my account. Because the thing is, you want to have those handy, because otherwise, without them, you're screwed. Wait, what? Yeah, because because that's something you opt into. So if you put the recovery key on your account, on your Apple account, you can't reset the password without it. Oh, yeah. Even after you get a code for your phone number, you can't reset the password without that recovery key. You can't reset the password without it. Without that, you're screwed. You can't reset the password without it. You can't reset the password because that's something you opt into. So without the recovery key, you can't reset the password. Oh. So yeah, so no one could hack my account, because even if they wanted to reset the password, they couldn't without the recovery key. Without my recovery key, they couldn't reset it. They wouldn't be able to reset it. They can't reset it without the recovery key to my account. My second account has it too, yeah, because that's why I have two, because my second account has a recovery key as well. That's why, yeah, because some people want to get the recovery key on it, so you can't reset the password without it. I'm not so shocked with whatever. But yeah, what I don't get is how do you reset, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? I've never seen that before. Like, how do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? How does that even work? How do you disable an iDevice for 45 years? That makes no sense. I have my iPad on the charge. Yeah, how do you set that iDevice? was locked to a entirely different account. It was also locked. Yeah, I don't know why I thought putting a display on I would fix it. But yeah, we just got the same problem. It was also locked. We had the same problem with that. And found the point. And it was locked to another person's account. I still can't believe that. That was so freaking annoying. I mean, honestly, the fact that it was locked to another person. Yeah, they spent the whole afternoon to see it. At least we did something together. I mean, trying to get that solved. I don't know why they thought that using a new part in the phone would fix it. I don't know why they thought that, that just putting another screen in the phone could fix it. I don't know why they thought that. That's the thing, I don't know why they thought that putting another screen in the phone would fix it. I don't know why they thought that would fix it. I don't know. That's what I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that would fix it. That putting another screen that putting another screen on the phone would fix it, because it was also locked. It had the same problem. It was also locked to another person's account. It had the same problem, obviously. It was locked to another person's account as well. It was also locked. It had the same problem.